Today we will be talking about fast versus slow twitch muscle fibers. To begin, we'll talk about muscle fibers. All skeletal muscle fibers contract when stimulated by an action potential in a motor neuron. However, the speed at which they contract differs among muscle fibers. This difference is mainly due to the rate at which their myosin heads hydrolyze ATP. Based upon their speed of contraction, we can classify muscle fibers into two different categories, either fast or slow. Another major criteria for classifying muscle fibers is the metabolic pathway for which they are producing ATP. Fibers that rely mostly on aerobic respiration are called oxidative fibers, whereas those primarily using glycolysis are called glycolytic fibers. This is a diagram of the skeletal muscle. The skeletal muscle is attached to the bones and is responsible for their movement. It is characterized by a hierarchy of smaller and smaller units. A skeletal muscle consists of a bundle of long fibers running parallel to the length of the muscle. Each fiber is a single cell with multiple nuclei reflecting its formation by the fusion of many embryonic cells. A muscle fiber, which you can see at the top of the diagram, is itself a bundle of smaller myofibrils arranged longitudinally. The myofibrils, in turn, are composed of two different kinds of myofilaments, thin filaments and thick filaments. Skeletal muscle is also called striated muscle because of the regular arrangement of the myofilaments that creates a pattern of light and dark bands. Each repeating unit is a sarcomere, which you can see towards the bottom of the picture. The basic contractile unit of the muscle is the sarcomere. Now we'll talk about slow oxidative fibers, also known as type 1. Slow fibers are often found in muscles that maintain posture and can sustain long contractions. A slow fiber has less sarcoplasmic reticulum and slower calcium pumps than a fast fiber, so calcium remains in the cytosol longer. This causes a twitch in a slow fiber to last about 5 times as long as one in a fast fiber. Because it's a slow twitch, it has oxidative fibers, which means it stores energy, and they have many mitochondria, a rich blood supply, and a large amount of an oxygen-storing protein called myoglobin. Myoglobin binds oxygen more tightly than hemoglobin, so it can effectively extract oxygen from the blood. Because it has the oxidative fibers, it is very red in color. In real life, you can see the man to the right is a marathon runner, and it looks like he hasn't eaten in 20 days, and that's because he has mostly slow oxidative type 1 muscle fibers. And because he needs these because he's running endurance, and he needs less fatigue as he's running. If you want more slow twitch muscle fibers to get the lean look, the exercises you should be doing are multiple repetitions at lighter weights. You should do endurance at a slower pace but for a longer amount of time. However, the best is doing intervals where you keep the endurance at a slower pace but a longer amount of time, but you up the speed for about 5 or so minutes, and you can actually switch between your slow muscle twitch fibers to your fast twitch muscle fibers, which we will talk about more later. Now we'll talk about fast oxidative, also known as type 2A. Even though it is a fast twitch fiber, it is still oxidative, which means it has more similar properties to the slow oxidative, and it is also less resistant to fatigue. It is also known as the intermediate because it is in between the slow oxidative and fast glycolytic and has similar properties to both. As you can see to the picture to the right, the darker red is the slow oxidative, whereas the darker pink is the fast oxidative, and the white is the fast glycolytic. Now we'll talk about fast glycolytic fibers, also known as type 2B. This uses glycolysis, which creates the glycolytic fibers. It is also white because it's using anaerobic respiration. In humans, our hands and our eyes have the fast glycolytic type 2B fibers, whereas our calves have type 1, the slow oxidative fibers. Compared to type 1 and type 2A, type 2B have larger fiber diameter, increase in fatigue, and fast contraction speed. As you can see to the right, the sprinters look like they've been at the gym for the past 24 days non-stop, and that's because they have an increase in fast glycolytic type 2B fibers, and it's crucial for them because they need a fast explosive speed off the starting block, and they only need it for a few seconds. If any of you guys want to bulk up and get some more fast twitch muscle fibers, some exercises that you should be doing are heavy weight training, which means you got to get those 200 pounds out and do short repetitions. Also do fast and explosive exercises such as sprints. For a chart on different types of muscle fibers, the contraction speed for type 1 is slow, for type 2A is fast, and for type 2B it's fast. For fatigue resistance, type 1 is high, type 2A is intermediate or low, and type 2B is low. For force production, type 1 is low, type 2A is intermediate, and type 2B is high. For aerobic enzymes, type 1 is very high, type 2A is intermediate or low, and type 2B is low. For anaerobic enzymes, type 1 is very low, type 2A is high, and type 2B is very high. For fiber diameter, type 1 is small, type 2A is intermediate, and type 2B is large. As you can see from this chart, type 2A falls under the intermediate area for both of these. As I mentioned before, you can actually switch muscle fiber types. Everyone starts off with 50% of each muscle fiber type. In certain areas, if you can have different types of muscle fibers, it's actually based on genetics to which ones you get. If you do an activity for repeatedly amount of time that requires high endurance, some fast glycolytic fibers can develop into fast oxidative fibers. Since fast oxidative fibers fatigue more slowly than fast glycolytic fibers, the muscle as a whole will become more resistant to fatigue. So, in retrospect, everyone can switch what kind of muscle fiber they have.